Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today in studio, he's back, ladies and gentlemen. He has returned from this road trip and looking much better than the Flyers. It is Philly's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor. How was the trip, Chuck?
The trip was fine. the games, they weren't the best.
They were they were informative, I would say.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah. I guess where we have to start with this, speaking of how bad these games have been, if you think it sucks as a viewer, if you think it sucks covering this, the players don't seem all that enthused. Well, the coach doesn't like it either, Charlie. And last night, he set Flyers fandom on fire with at least part of the quotes that got out, or the things that were quoted on Twitter via everybody, the parts that everyone took and ran with, whatever it might be. John Tortorella says after last night's game, the second straight game in which they allow 7 goals, this falls on me. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at right now, but I have to do a better job. So this falls on me, getting the team prepared to play the proper way until we get to the end. And
this blew
I
up
have
on
to do
Twitter.
a better job.
It
That
blew up on
part
Twitter.
seems to be getting kind of brushed past. And a lot of people are kind of running with this as, I don't want to coach these sorts of games. I hate this. I quit. A lot of people seem to be interpreting that way.
Yes.
And while I do think there are elements of there's a little IDGAF going on here. That's not how I interpret that full quote.
Yeah, this is really a fascinating conversation because I'm speaking as someone who was there. I was in the scrum. I asked the question that garnered this answer. I did not come away from that scrum because there are times I can say this as someone who's covered the team for years. There are times where you get a quote from a player or you get a quote from a coach or a quote from a GM and you immediately have in your head oh, that's big. That's a quote. That is one that is going to set off a firestorm. I did not come away from that scrum believing that people were going to lose it as badly as they did over that quote, because in the scrum, I feel like I took it the way I think he meant it to be taken, which was, I don't really want to have to learn how to coach a team that's playing out the string, and these games don't matter, but regardless of whether I want to do it or not, I need to do a better job, and I'm not doing a good enough job doing it. That was the way I interpreted it, a foot away from John Tortorella, which is why it was so surprising when I was in the cab in the cab back to the hotel after I got done filing my story and realized that Twitter had taken that quote and just ran with it. And I get it when you read it word for word.
Yeah.
It's just that in the moment, being there and hearing his tone and hearing the way it was said, that wasn't my takeaway, which is why it's a fascinating conversation to have, because I didn't take it the way that I think people that read it took it. And maybe I'm wrong for not taking it that way, but as someone who was actually there and actually having the back and forth with Torts, I feel like I'm probably uniquely qualified to say that I don't think that's the way he meant it.
And listen, I was here doing post game, so I didn't hear it, but I read it after the fact. The first person that brought it up, I didn't see it until a super chatter said it. Someone told us what the quote was, and I was like, ooh. And then I read the whole thing. I'm like, man, that is kind of incendiary. And then I watched the press conference, and it was only 90 seconds.
Yeah, it was short.
Obviously they lose 7-2. I don't know. We suck. The end.
Not a lot you can talk about.
Yeah, but then
especially when you're not willing to talk about
yes,
the one
big
decision that was interesting.
I'm not going to tell you. Well, all right, thanks. And then I watched it, and it seemed and this is, we say all the time, John Tortorella is so good at playing the game. it did seem as if he just didn't say what he was trying to say, and that's why he kind of comes back and repeats it, but differently. Like, to me, it reads like, I'm done with this. This is BS. And then when I hear him say it, I'm thinking, no, he's just trying to fall on it. Like, why have we sucked so bad that we've given up 14 goals in 2 games? Because I'm not doing a good enough job. Because I am frustrated with the way things are going, and that is affecting my job, and that is, of course, then impacting the players. That is how I interpret it when I hear him say it. But when you just read the words,
Yes, exactly.
when you just read the words, it's not good.
It looks really
It looks
bad.
way worse than the way he said it.
That's kind of where I stand. And I even see someone in our comment section making this point, because I think Jackie Spiegel made this point on Twitter. And I do think it's mostly true, but it's not totally true. The point is that this is classic John Tortorella deflecting the conversation, deflecting the narrative away from the team that just gave up 7 goals in consecutive games and towards him, making him the subject of the narrative. I don't think that's incorrect in a way, because I do think John Tortorella, sometimes he just like says things off the cuff. He just shoots from the hip. And then the next day he's like, I shouldn't have said that. That was dumb. I am convinced, based on the fact that he seemed very adamant that he wanted this in the scrum, he came into that scrum with the idea in his head that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say it's my fault.
I'm going to take the blame.
That I am going to put the spotlight on myself and say that it's not on the guys, it's on me. I need to do a better job, straight up Andy Reid style. I think that was planned, and that was his way of deflecting the blame from his players. That was what he wanted to do. I think the specific comment and the specific way he worded it with, I have no interest in coaching, that I think was just a mistake. I think that was, like, he didn't go in, he's not playing 3-dimensional chess here. He's like, I'm going to say something so crazy, and they think I don't even want to coach the team, and then all the conversation is going to be on me. No, I don't think he's that 3-dimensional chess. I think he came in wanting the spotlight to be on him, as him saying he's the one at fault. But then I think he messed up by wording it in a way that made it even worse for him.
Yes, that is exactly what I believe. He was doing the typical coach thing. Like, sometimes the coach will come out and throw his players under the bus. Sometimes it's like, you know what? I have to do this.
Yes.
And other times he's like, well, they're getting their heads kicked in. Do I need to dance on their graves too? No, I will take some of this blame. And then what he says blows it up, and there is some of that. And
now he is absolutely the top of the conversation. So it worked,
it worked.
But I think it worked beyond where he wanted it to go.
There is some of that. There is a contingent of people that like want him gone so badly that it's like, well, we're going to run with that part.
Yeah, but I don't think it was like that. Are there some people who have that, like, I'm going to look for any reason to get rid of him? Sure. But I think most people responded to this sincerely confused, borderline outraged of like, look, dude, you signed up for this and now you don't want to do it? What the hell?
No, that's like, I do think that contingent exists, but I don't think that's like what's fueling this right now. It's that when he got hired, he said he knew what this was. But there is that whole idea, we're not tanking. We're not tearing it down to the studs. We're going to compete.
Oh, this looks like a tank
and
now.
Year one was what it was. And it was mostly, okay, we got to figure out who don't belong here, Yeah. And then last year, they fell apart in the second half. But, it comes down to game 82.
They got to the last game of the year with playoff hopes.
Like, they were in a playoff spot for most of the season. This year, it has, outside of like a couple of short streaks, just been terrible. Like, their record, what has gone on, like the goaltending's been bad, the power play is horrible. It's, they trade away a bunch of dudes. Like, things have just not gone well. And I get that he's frustrated. Like, makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I do wonder, like, could this be it? Like, I'm not saying like because of the quote, but now it's just another thing. I was trying to research. Last season, 2024, end of the year, he was on the bench till the end, right? Because the games like mattered.
He was, but remember, at the end of each year, he does that sit up in the box and let his assistants coach a couple games.
He does, but
he does do that.
Did he do that last season?
No,
I didn't think so because
those games mattered.
They were in it till game 82,
I believe so.
It makes sense.
Yes.
I was trying to figure out if he did it last year, and I know he did it in 2023. I found a Kurz piece from last season where he had some comments from Doug McLean, where he said Torts wanted to transition to management in his final season in Columbus. And that kind of led to that mutual parting of the ways because Jarmo was like, no, you're going to coach or you're not going to be here. Right. And like, well, I'm the GM. So you want to do what exactly, John? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, fair.
You know? So, and that's kind of what led to that. Now, like, and Kurz pointed out, like, listen, Doug McLean, while he has ties to Columbus, he left like 7 years before Tortorella did. Sure. So, like, yeah, it's take it for a grain of salt.
It's through the grapevine,
but
to be sure.
You know, it's hockey. It's a small world.
It is.
I don't think Doug McLean's going on podcasts or whatever making stuff up.
He might not have 100% of the story, but he probably has at least 80%.
Like, could this be it? Like, can you bring him back? I know, like, yes, they can. They can do anything.
They can do whatever they want.
They can make me or you the coach. They can do whatever the hell they want. Like, but can you, like, put, especially, I always think about the veterans, like TK and Sanheim. They are not going to, they could, I guess, make the playoffs with some improvements next year, but they're not going to be good.
Yeah.
Can you put them through another year of the John Tortorella experience knowing that it's not leading to anything, and he's probably not going to be here after that anyway? Like, I still think it's but right now, today, Wednesday, March 26th, it's not even 4:15 yet. Yeah, I think John Tortorella's back next year. But I think it's way closer to 50. And I know I say all the time, everything's
50-50. Either it happens or it doesn't.
Like last week, I was like, I think it's like 75%, but it's a conversation. I think it's way closer to 50 now. Still, I think he's back, but I don't know, man. I just feel like we might be moving towards some sort of situation that makes it impossible. Like a couple more bad games in a row, there's going to be a blow up or something. Like I don't know if this is possible.
Look, maybe that said, like last year there was a blow up. He scratched the captain.
Yeah.
And he survived that. Now, going back to the quote for a second though, even if I think that was more of a misspeak than a Freudian slip, then no, actually he's checked out on the team and this is him admitting that he's checked out on the team. I do think that he has to address this with the players because look, just like everyone else on social media, just like you, just like the people in the comment section, vast majority of them, at least at first, didn't watch the weren't there like me, didn't watch the post game. They just read the quote. And a lot of these players who, I got news for you, a lot of guys in that room don't like John Tortorella already. And then they see a quote like that, which very much, if you are just reading it, reads, I am done with this crap. That is not going to play well, I think, in that room, unless Tortorella then does kind of like a, hey, I screwed up with that quote. I'm behind you guys, and at least tries to. But I'm going to put it this way. Like, I don't think it's going to play well in the room, at the very least, when they all saw that quote on Twitter, because I got news for you. They're all on Twitter. Even if they're not, they are.
Yes. And as we know,
they couldn't have liked to see that. And couldn't have liked to see that be the discourse for the rest of the night into today about their team and their coach.
Maybe he does address this with the team. As we know, though, you have to find Torts a lot of the time. And he's got the open door policy. Come talk to me whenever about anything. But he doesn't go out of his way to address things.
True.
So I wonder. I just wonder how this is going to play over the next couple of days and weeks.
In a little bit, I want to talk about the Cam York thing. But before that, we have a special guest.
We do. Before we get to Maddie, I do want to hit our ad reads, starting with our friends at Shady Rays.
Heyo.
Listen, it's warming up here in Philly. We know it's always sunny here, and our friends at Shady Rays are helping you get in the right frame of mind with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their sunglasses have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They also have ski and snowboard goggles, and if you want to hit those slopes one more time before the season ends, head over to Shady Rays. There's a ton of things I love about Shady Rays, but today I have my tangle-free aviators on. You go into Wawa on a sunny day, put your glasses up, boom, don't get stuck in your hair. That's how great the tangle-free option is at Shady Rays. They have all sorts of styles for everybody. You got to check them out. And right now, for PHLY viewers and listeners, you can go to shadyrays.com and save 35% off polarized sunglasses with code PHLY. Over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars, so use code PHLY today at shadyrays.com. While we're here, I got to tell you about our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Bet365, it's been my sportsbook of choice for like 2 years now. I am a big fan of all their features, the live streams, almost 800,000 events each year, the early payouts. You know I love the early payouts. Your team opens up a 3-goal lead in the NHL. Boom! You get paid if you bet the money line, whether they hold on to that lead or not. And we have breaking news from our presenting sponsor, Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. All you got to do is sign up, use code PHLY365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets, whether your initial bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone who knows a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And now we are joined by our friend from Broad Street Hockey, our own Phantoms correspondent. That's right, it's Madeline Campbell. How you doing today, Maddie?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Oh, just peachy over here talking about these Philadelphia Flyers. And, you know, this is our Shady Rays Future is Bright segment. Future's so bright here in Philly, even when things look as bleak as they do right now. You need a great pair of Shady Rays to protect your eyes. Go to shadyrays.com for that 35% off with code PHLY. And yeah, Maddie, it's bleak. But we have the Phantoms, and we even have Phantoms playoff hockey to talk about. So it's the Future is Bright segment. First thing people want to know about, it's Nikita Grebenkin. How is he fitting in? Looks like he's helping out that power play down there. Seems like a pretty fun player. How is he fitting in with his new team?
Yeah, he's been great. He had power play goals in his first 2 games, nothing in the second 2, but like the whole team kind of didn't really have anything offensively over the weekend, so hard to pick on him for that. But yeah, I mean, he's playing a ton of minutes for them. He's up on the top line, top power play unit, and I mean, he's fit in pretty seamlessly. He's generating a lot of looks for them. I think it was after Wednesday's game, Lappy said he's got a flair for making plays, and that's certainly something that they need right now.
You a little surprised he's still with the AHL squad? Didn't get one of these final call-ups?
A little bit, honestly. I mean, I saw the Parker Gahagan call-up from Reading on Monday night and just assumed they were bringing him up as an extra for the road trip. It didn't even really occur to me that we might be seeing Kolosov up with the Flyers again, but I guess they're desperate. Yeah. I mean, I'm not hugely surprised, though. Like, I kind of get they want to just let him get settled in with one team and then go from there. I guess they've decided it's more valuable for him to get reps in the AHL. I don't know. I would have liked to see him up with the Flyers just to, like, give us something to be excited about around here, but I'm sure he'll get a look up with the big squad before long.
So changing gears to someone you already mentioned about Aleksei Kolosov, how was he doing in the AHL prior to me spotting him in the bowels of the Scotiabank Arena yesterday morning?
That's so funny, by the way.
He was carrying his bag with a 35 on the back, and I'm like, pretty sure that's Aleksei Kolosov.
Ready to go. Yeah, honestly, he's been pretty solid for the Phantoms since he's been back. Not perfect, but, you know, I think he's been about as good as I would like to see playing in front of a defense that can be, like, a little bit spotty and a penalty kill that's not very good. He looks a lot more settled this time around, which I think is mostly what I was wanting to see.
That's good to know. That he just, like, you look at the numbers, 5 March games, 902 save percentage, had a few poor ones, at least by the numbers, a few strong ones as well, but seems like he's evening out down there. But now he has this call up, and I've just been having this idea, like, all right, I'm all good on watching Ivan Fedotov probably. So if Kolosov becomes the backup or whatever, fine. But there's a lot of guys down there who maybe thought they'd be getting at least a late season look with the Flyers, and now they are out of call-ups. That's that, unless it's an emergency. But, can't bank on that. How do you think that might play in the room? Are there guys who were thinking like, all right, last couple weeks of the season, I'm going to get to play in the NHL a little bit? Not the case. You think there might be something, just maybe a little something going on with that decision that's rubbing some people the wrong way?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a great sense of like what the guys are thinking in the room in that regard, but I wouldn't be hugely surprised. But, at the same time, like personally, other than Grebenkin, I don't really know who I would have wanted or expected to see up from the Phantoms at this point. Like it seems like McDonald's not quite ready. Tuamal is hurt. Those were the two guys who I sort of felt like were, at the top of the list of expected players to, make the jump at some point. But yeah, just fewer options, I guess.
Fair. I guess let's change gears and go to the postseason, 2 postseasons. But first, the looming AHL postseason. Where do the Phantoms stand right now from a playoff outlook standpoint? What are their matchup possibilities looking like? I know we heard today that Alex Chiernik is joining the team. Seems like Jet Luchanko will be as well. Presumably they're coming for a playoff push, but what might that playoff push look like?
Yeah, as of right now, they're in that 5th spot in the standings. I think their magic number is like 11 at this point. They're not winning a ton of games at the moment. I think they've lost 3 of their last 5, so they're not making a ton of progress towards clinching. But like, given the state of the rest of the division, they're definitely going to be in. As far as matchups go, who knows at this point? The like the 2 through 4 spot are so tight. Points percentage right now looks like it's probably going to be Providence in that first round, which they haven't been great against them on the season. I think they're 1-3, which is a little scary. But yeah, I mean, with the new guys coming in soon, hopefully that gives them a boost. Yeah.
Any idea when we might see Jet Luchanko join the team? Has there been any talk of, okay, yeah, it's going to be this weekend, or we're going to give him a week to get settled? When might fans be able to actually watch him in a Phantoms uniform?
Yeah, I think the initial reports were that he's at least supposed to be joining the team this weekend, which makes sense because they're up in Belleville and Laval, so roughly his neck of the woods. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him like a little bit of practice time to get settled in, but not super sure when exactly he'll be starting, but definitely should be soon, which is fun.
All right. With the you told me recently you're actually going to be covering the NCAA tournament, which there's Allentown, the PPL Center is actually hosting a region for this. I believe Penn State is going to be in that region, so it's pretty cool. What games are you going up to in Lehigh Valley? Can you give us a little primer for the region of the Frozen Face-Off or whatever this thing is called?
Yeah, so we got kind of unlucky this year with how it all sort of played out because there aren't any Flyers prospects in this regional. Bump's going to be in Fargo. Kaplan's going to be in Toledo, I think. So, I mean, we'll still be able to watch those remotely. But yeah, Allentown is going to be Maine, Penn State, Yukon, and Quinnipiac. Yeah. I can't think about that one too hard as I'm saying it, but
former BSH blog lord Travis Hughes' school.
He really?
Yeah.
Oh, good
Went
to
to
know.
Quinnipiac, indeed.
Good old Travis.
But I think the big exciting one is just that Penn State got in. They went on kind of a tear at the end of the season to get into the tournament at all. So that's exciting. I mean, I'm a Temple person, so I don't have like super strong feelings about that one, but lots of Penn State fans in the area. I know the last couple years they were in up there got a really big turnout, so that was cool. But there's a couple of draft eligible prospects who are going to be playing in those games. Charlie Serrato at Penn State, and then Drew Hockney at Quinnipiac. So it'll be nice to get eyes on some. I mean, like they're probably going to be mid to late round pick guys, but getting eyes on them early is, not a bad thing.
All right, Maddie, I just want to ask what you think of the job Anne LaPerriere has done. You just mentioned the penalty kill being poor, and imagine my shock that Anne LaPerriere is the coach of a team with a bad penalty kill. But just in terms of developing talent, what the team has accomplished with him as head coach, where I think they have 9 games left as well. Like they're in 5th place in their division. Every team but the last place team, I believe, makes at least that beginning of the playoffs that the AHL does. How do you believe Lappy is doing in Lehigh Valley?
I mean, it's been pretty middling, I would say. Like you said, the on ice results have been kind of straight down the middle. Player development wise, they've had some guys who have taken steps forward, which has been nice, but equally some who have stayed the same or even regressed a little bit. So yeah, it's been okay, but might have been wanting to see a little bit more from that. But
all right, just one last one here. Those Phantoms all white uniforms with a little bit of orange outline. We had a debate on our St. Patty's show about them. Love or hate?
I think this might be controversial based on some conversations that I've had, but I kind of like them. I definitely don't hate them.
All right, I was in the minority. I dislike them, but I want the Phantoms wearing Philadelphia Phantoms flex style gear. That's what I want. So I'm never going to like anything else they give me. Maddie, thank you very much for joining us. You can check out Maddie Campbell's work at allphly.com, where she covers the Phantoms for us. Also at Broad Street Hockey. We will talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, that was Madeline Campbell, our AHL correspondent. And now I have here in the outline, pick a winner for the t-shirt giveaway. And I forgot the bucket with all the names in it. It's right out there.
No.
So we're going to do it on pregame tomorrow.
Okay.
You're fine. I don't know if I told you this because you've been away. I was like watching the game last night and it's, I don't know, 6-1 or whatever the hell it was. And I'm just like, I don't want to do this. So I can't imagine our viewers are like pumped. But we're still getting a ton of live views. You're all the best. Love it. So I want to do some sort of fan appreciation for the final 10 post games. And so I'm going to have a keyword for every post game. Last night was leaves.
Okay.
Because Leafs is grammatically incoherent.
You're not wrong.
And anyone who DM'd the PHLY Flyers Twitter or Blue Sky with the keyword gets put into the bucket, and one gets picked for every game. We're going to give them a free t-shirt of their choosing.
Okay.
I have all the names. They're in a bucket. They're out there. Sorry. We'll do it in pregame tomorrow. My bad. I do want to get back to
I did actually hear about that because I listened to the show this morning
excellent. Way to
when
go.
I was en route home.
There you
so
go.
I did know about that new tidbit. I was kind of thinking in my head, maybe we could tweak it so like we say at the beginning of the show what the keyword is, and then you have to listen for like when it's actually said. But the problem is that like then we'll probably forget to say it.
That's exactly why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, because I will absolutely forget. Much like I spent 20 minutes putting the names in a bucket. Oh, Julia is bringing us the bucket. This is outstanding.
Incredible.
See, this is what rolls. Is we have our producers watching the shows live, so we can pick a winner from last night's post game.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Julia. I have a bucket full of names here. It's like 30 or 40 names in this bucket. We got a ton of DMs. Let's pick our first winner. Let's see here. We have one, and it is The ID DM from Blue Sky. All right.
Sure.
Thank you very much. We have our first winner here. I will be in touch and we'll get your mailing address and size and which shirt you want and everything. But we have one winner.
If you're surviving these games and then watching post game,
if you are watching these post games, I don't even care if you're watching the games.
Truly wish we could give you more than a shirt.
I wish we could give everyone watching something. I wish it was more than a shirt. This is what I can do. 10 games, now 9 games left. I'm giving away 10 shirts. This is our first one. Congratulations, the ID DM. You're our first winner. I'm debating whether I keep all the names in the bucket or we restart so people have to watch every show. I'm thinking we have to restart so people watch every show.
I think that is probably the move.
Yeah, so that's what we'll have to do. But
definitely you're not. You don't just watch one and then get perpetually.
You stay in there.
It's a new group every single show.
All right, that's probably what that's what we should do. All right, but that is our winner, the ID DM. Congrats. I'll be in touch after the show. All right. Do we have anything else really on Torts before we get to some of this other stuff?
Do we want to talk about the York thing?
All right, that's where
because I feel like in a lot of ways, if anything, this whole debate about him not having interest in coaching, if anything, it distracted from a really important debate about the York thing. Because for me, and look, Torts is never going to admit this. He straight up said when we asked him about York, he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to answer questions about that. Don't even bother." But like to me, if we're trying to decide like what he has to learn about coaching in this dead period where they can't make the playoffs and they're just playing out the string, the York decision is what he has to learn. Because to me, and I said this on the show, it's hard for me to feel too aggrieved on behalf of York. He looked real bad on that play. He has not been playing that well recently, but he looked real bad on that play, and it was a soft play. That was the worst part. I'm sure that's what really ticked off Torts. Was that wasn't even just that it was a bad play. It was a soft play. He was not hard on that puck. He got knocked off that puck behind the net so easily, and that probably just infuriated Tortorella. So I get it. Hard for me to feel aggrieved on Torts' behalf. I was aggrieved on behalf of the other 5 defensemen who had to then pick up the slack for 50 minutes of the final game of a road trip. And this goes back to what I was saying about like the players being probably frustrated when they saw that quote pop up on their social media feeds. If I'm one of those 5 defensemen, I'm ticked off at Torts for making me carry that extra load because he just had to make a point to Cam York. He had to make our lives more difficult because he just had to put him in the corner for 50 minutes. That I do wonder if it ticks off players. I do.
I can't imagine it doesn't, especially when they're out there absorbing the beating that they absorbed like on this road trip and in the last 2 games. And like, yeah, you know what? You give up 7 to Chicago, like that's on you. But you need everyone you can get to even compete with the Leafs, like even to have a shot. And they were never going to win that game.
The guys don't want to lose 7-2.
But exactly. Like you need all the help you can get. And you were like, yes, you're punishing York, but it's like, all right, now drive this car with 3 wheels.
Yeah.
How does that how you're proving this point to York by making our lives harder? So he gets the night off while we're giving up 7. Like, thanks, man. Like, what does Sam Ersson think about this? Like, oh, one of my 3 best defensemen ain't going to play tonight because reasons. You know, and again, Cam York hasn't been very good. And I do want to get to some of these XGA numbers that they showed us on the broadcast the other night because I don't know where they're from. I don't know who's calculating this, but they're interesting. But
I'm probably right because I don't think Cam York overall has been bad this year.
No. I want to back up here, though, like just the goalie situation, because when we started the Tortorella conversation, I said, this isn't how I interpreted, but there are some IDGAF things going on. 2 games in a row. Mm-hmm. The goaltender allows 7 goals, and there are points in the game where maybe it wasn't going to be 7. Maybe it wasn't going to be a blowout. Maybe the game could have been a lot closer. Or you just cut the goalie a break, cut the team a break, try to wake them up, whatever. And both games, he goes, nah, you're absorbing the whole thing. Leaves Fedotov in. We know he's had a quick hook with him a bunch of times. Just kind of seemed like, you know what, I'm done with this guy. Go ahead, take your beating. I'm not putting Sam Ersson through this. And then the following game does the same thing to his guy, Sam Ersson, calls a timeout at 5-1. really felt like, okay, and now they're gonna change goals. No, leaves Ersson to take the final two as well. Nylander and Tavares. Like, this is a great team. Toronto, I know they haven't had the playoff success and everything. Like, that is a Stanley Cup contending team with some superstars on it. And you're just like, yeah, you're getting your head kicked in, take it. That is not what happens most of the time in these situations. If there's something that the players can point to, like, are you trying your hardest towards? It's those things. Like, you didn't even throw us a lifeline of a different goalie in these games to see if it would change the dynamic somewhat. What was your read on that?
Yeah, this seemed to bother you more than it bothered me.
I don't know about bother, just like, why?
You know what I think, honestly, a lot of, because this has been, we haven't been butting heads about this, but for the last couple of weeks, like when you were talking about how, like, well, why not give Fedotov a game? And I'm like, because I don't need to see more of him. I don't think he's very good, and I don't see where he fits. Why waste the time? And you're like, well, no, give him games. I think this may be the heart of the disconnect. Like, the reason why it didn't bother me at all that he didn't put Fedotov in the game yesterday is because I don't think Fedotov is very good. And the reason why I suspect it probably didn't bother the players that much is because they know that Fedotov isn't very good. And they know, like, it would have been one thing if Ersson was giving up weak goals. Then I would have agreed with you. If it was like Ersson's giving up, shots that are squeezing through his elbow and they're going through the 5-hole. You watch that game, like, I'm not saying Ersson played well, but those were not weak goals. They were just, you're hoping you're getting a save here
good
and
players
there.
Making good plays.
Players making good plays. It's not like the players are on the bench being like, man, Sam just don't got it tonight. They're on the bench saying, man, we just don't got it tonight. And for me, if I'm a player on the bench and you pull Ersson, number one, I feel bad for Ersson because I'm like, man, we've really let him down. Number two, I'm like, yikes. Now you're bringing in the worst goalie? Now we're going to lose 12-2.
I guess the disconnect is, like, you have to try something if you're the coach. And the only thing you can do is change the lines or change the goalie. And when your decision...
Well, he benched the guy.
Well, no, and when your decision is, I'm going to take away a player, regardless of what you think of Cam York, he is one of their three best defensemen, especially with Risto out.
Yeah,
100%. Even with the year he's having. I don't think it's been very good. I think maybe I'm unfair on him because I just don't like him not personally. I don't know him at all. He might be a good guy. I have no idea. I just have some bias against Cam York.
You've always been anti-defensemen who don't score points and aren't obviously defensive defensemen.
If he's
not the same thing with Sanheim for years.
Yes, if he's not physical and he doesn't score, I don't understand what he's doing out there. But that's a me problem. I fully admit I am biased against Cam York, 100%. That said, like, you take him away, you don't give even him a chance to, like, make up for it. And we had this conversation off the air, like, a couple of weeks ago. He does that thing to Mishkov. And then after the game goes, in the heat of the moment, I then realized after the fact, I could have put him back in for the second or third, put him out there for a power play or something at least. That's me. And then a situation arises, benches Mishkov for the first, puts him back in there for the rest of the game, all is well. A couple of weeks, not even, like what, a week later, he does it to Cam York and keeps him out for 50 freaking minutes. Like, I don't know. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over. Like, it just seems as if he's not doing everything possible. We're told he's trying to win every game. Is he?
Well, I think, and you kind of spoke to this a few seconds ago. I think a lot of what's driving this debate, a lot of what's driving, I'm sure, what's having the conversations happening in the room, online, in the fan base, I think everyone just kind of has Tortorella fatigue. Like, I think everyone is just kind of sick of it. Just, like, sick of the mind games, sick of the benching, sick of the pageantry, sick of him going off the rails in one presser and then being great in another. I just think there is general fatigue on Torts. Now, I think that is absolutely the case in the fan base. But I also suspect it's probably the case a little bit in that locker room, too, because how could they not be? He's an exhausting coach.
And that's my point of, like, I don't think you can put these guys through this again. And, like, I am not the big Torts detractor. Like, I think I said on the show yesterday or whenever, like, I am 75% pro Torts. I disagree with some of the stuff he does, but overall, I think he does a good job accomplishing what he's tasked with accomplishing in terms of teaching guys. And, 10 years from now, like, we'll ask Mishkov, and maybe he'll be like, yeah, he did help me, but we'll have to wait, that amount of time probably. But at this point, when they can't possibly make the team good enough in one off season without doing a bunch of dumb stuff for short-term gains to, like, make it worth keeping Torts around, I just don't see the point, and I don't see what we're trying to accomplish in these final games if it's like, yeah, man, Cam York messed up, so he's got to sit for 50 minutes.
We're not trying to accomplish anything. This is just
there has to be a point.
Well, this is just the benching of Cam York very clearly is just John Tortorella being John Tortorella. That is him basically in the moment making a decision that I'm done with this guy. He ticked me off. He's sitting. That is not him thinking about, well, what does this mean for the rebuild? Like I mentioned it, I made a joke about it on postgame. Like it actually is a great tanking move, but I'm certain that was not the reason why he did it. It wasn't like, well, I'm going to sit one of my top pair defensemen the first time he makes a mistake so that we lose this game and have a better chance at the 3rd overall pick. Like that might be something somebody on Twitter would have wanted them to do. It's not the reason why Torts did it, even if it served the same purpose.
All right. I guess, is the disconnect actually the idea, like, it's more with management than it is with John Tortorella?
What do you mean?
We've been told by Danny, we've been told by Jonesy, we've been told by Hilferty, yeah, man, we ain't tanking. We're going to try to be competitive. We're going to play these meaningful games. And in 2 of these 3 years, like, that hasn't been the case under John Tortorella. They've had from January 20th of last year, and really, like, you had to have some inkling before that. You had from January 20th through the deadline, and then all summer leading up until 2 weeks ago to fix the goaltending problem. You can't compete with these goalies. They didn't. They've chosen to do nothing, which puts you in the situation you're in. It's what led to the downfall last year. It's the reason they never got off the ground this year.
That's accurate.
Like,
I'm still not quite sure where you're taking
is this disconnect? Like, well, they're trying to compete, and they're like, I feel like everyone is on board with, yeah, man, let's try to get a top 3 pick. Absolutely. But to me, the problem is, well, this wasn't the plan you told me about. And because of that, like, I'm judging you on what you told me the plan was. And now I think you're not doing as good of a job as you might actually be.
Well, I would say that interpretation is almost entirely driven by the last 2 games. Because when they say they're not tanking, number one, that means we're not going to strip it down to the absolute bare bones and then rebuild from scratch, which they haven't done. Even after they trade Farabee, Frost, and Lawton, it's not like they traded Konechny. It's not like they gutted the entire team. They haven't traded Risto. They kept Sanheim. Like, they haven't done everything from a tanking standpoint. They just traded away some youngerish guys who they decided don't fit with the long-term plan, and they traded Scott Lawton, who people wanted traded 3 years ago. Okay. But the idea of this isn't working, like, last week it kind of was. Yes, they were losing, but they were losing in a, I wouldn't say acceptable, but in a John Tortorella acceptable way, in that they're close games, they're playing hard, they just can't score. But those are the kinds of losses that I don't think the Flyers front office would say counts as tanking, because they're playing against real good teams and they're playing them tough, and the competitiveness is there and they're playing hard. They're just losing because Capitals, Stars, and Lightning are just more
Cup
talented.
contenders, yeah.
Now, these last 2 games, I agree. If the next 9 games are like these last 2, this is 11 games of a tank. And that would be a failure based on the fact that they have claimed, we're not tanking. We're rebuilding. We're not tanking. But I'm not ready to say that's the way that the last 9 games, the last 11 games, if you count these 2, are going to go, because the reason why they have John Tortorella is to prevent them from having the next 9 games be like the last 2. If they are, maybe they come to the conclusion that John Tortorella isn't the right coach to have them not tank, because he can't prevent them from tanking, which they don't want them to do.
I guess my disappointment, because yes, while they were playing hard and those games were semi-close, like, my issue is I haven't seen enough guys take steps this year. I think there are some that you can point to and go, yeah, pretty good. But like, I don't know,
Drysdale,
Jamie
Brink,
Drysdale was a
Case.
6th overall pick. Isn't he supposed to be this good?
Well, he wasn't when they got him. He's improved from where he was when they got him. And we always, I mean, I've been saying this for the last year and a half. It was always going to take time for Jamie Drysdale. And by time, I don't mean like 2 months. I mean 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for Drysdale to become the guy they think he can become. But I do agree with you that guys like Tyson Forrester, guys like Owen Tippett, guys like Cam York, they don't seem to be progressing as quickly as they wanted them to. Obviously, guys like Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost didn't because they're gone.
All right, I want to get back to York and Tippett in just a minute. But first, got to tell you about a couple of our sponsors. Got to lead it off with our friends at Game Time, baby. That's right, the absolute best secondary ticket marketplace because of features like Game Time Picks. The curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. It filters out the fluff so you only get the best deals on the best seats. I use Game Time every time I am looking to buy tickets to an event. You know, I've got some summer concerts lined up. Obviously, baseball getting started up tomorrow. Use it all summer for that. Very much looking forward to everything Game Time has to offer, but the other features are just as great. I tell you all the time about the all-in pricing. I used a different ticket marketplace the other day. It wasn't something, just wasn't available on Game Time. It was its own kind of little thing, smaller venue. My ticket price legitimately doubled by the time I got to checkout. I was like, okay, the ticket costs this, and it's going to be this. There's 2 of them for me and my wife. Great. This is what I'm spending. I go to put in my credit card info. Oh, it's double now. That never happens at Game Time because when you toggle in the all-in pricing, boom, it shows you everything right up there, all the fees, so there are no surprises when you get to checkout. Same thing with the seat view. Get a panoramic view from the seat before you check out. No surprises when you get to the venue either. And, of course, the low price guarantee and the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. That's right. So you got to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And while we're here, oh, yes, got to tell you about the 100% pure nicotine pouches at Lucy. It's always tobacco-free, and it comes in breakers and pouches. Lucy nicotine breakers are pouches with an extra surprise. Each pouch holds a capsule that can be broken open to release extra flavor and hydration. You got to set yourself up with a subscription and have Lucy delivered straight to your door. I just got an email the other day. Looks like they have gum coming out as well, so you have to check that out. Let's level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/PHLY and use code PHLY to get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Again, that's lucy.co/PHLY and use code PHLY to get 20% off. Here comes that fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. All right, let's start with York because that's who we have been talking about. By some numbers, the raw scoring numbers, I don't know. I just need more offense out of Cam York. Very frustrating to me in that regard. Also, he's averaged 10 seconds a game on the power play this year. That means he doesn't play the power play a little bit.
Well, that also plays into why the numbers are poor.
Yes. And we all know, like maybe not on this team, but
most teams.
Generally, power play inflates your numbers. It's where you pad your stats. It's why everyone wants power play time. He was pretty damn good at it at the U.S. national program. Now, of course, that's like one of the best U.S. national teams ever.
It was a stacked program.
Maybe it was, he's just dishing easy passes and racking up assists to like all-stars.
Probably part of it.
Whatever. He was pretty decent at it at the time. Doesn't get that opportunity this year. The scoring is one thing. I don't know ideally what he is, like where he fits, who you have to partner him with to get the best results. Now, that said, they showed these on the broadcast the other night. It was during the road trip, so you probably didn't get a chance to see it. You look at these pairs that Sanheim and Cam York are matched up there with in terms of expected goals against per 60. We know they play a ton of ice time. They play a ton together. And these are all really good pairs on really good teams. And then there's them right there. Only Taves and Makar, like maybe the best pair in hockey, ahead of them in terms of this one particular statistic.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this probably was natural stat trick.
I looked it up and couldn't figure it out.
Probably
gave up,
natural
so I
stat
figured
trick.
I'd ask you. Regardless of source, I know you use Evolving Hockey. I typically check this stuff out at Natural Stat
They're
Trick.
usually not that far off.
What do you make of this statistic, first of all? Because it's been making the rounds lately.
Well, look, the public metrics are obviously not going to be as comprehensive as private metrics.
Sure.
As the ones that can take into account passes before a shot, exactly how quality a chance is based on all of the details that the public sphere just cannot collect. So number one, those are public metrics, so they're not perfect. However, I believe, and this is based on my eye test just as much as it is based on the numbers, I believe Cam York is a legitimately good defenseman at playing defense. His big problem primarily is the fact that he doesn't produce as much offensively. And I'm not even just talking about points. I'm talking about like carrying the puck, activating, being a major contributor, driving breakouts. I think he is a legitimately good defensive defenseman. Not in the sense that he is like a shutdown, like, oh man, yeah, he's your prototypical shutdown defenseman. But I think that
when he's out there, that the other team doesn't get chances.
I think he generally, and last night was an exception, he was real bad. But generally speaking, I think he does a good job of killing plays. I think he has a good stick. I think while he's not physical in the sense of making big hits, I think he does a good job along the boards. I think he does an okay job for his size in front of the net. I think that is probably his strong point as a defenseman right now, is the defensive side of his play. The thing is that he was drafted to be an offensively oriented guy. So when you look at his numbers and you say, well, he's not scoring, he must stink. And he doesn't, like, it's easy to buy that Risto is good defensively because he looks like he should be good defense.
Yeah.
He hits people. He's big. He's the prototypical defensive defenseman. What was funny is that
It's like
before Philly, he was actually bad at defense.
Yes.
He just looked like he was good at defense because he was big and he hit people.
It's like the conversation we used to have about Tony D versus Ghost. They're both bad defensively, but Ghost gets pushed off the puck in the corner.
Yeah.
And when Tony D gets beat, he then punches you. So you accept that bad, but you don't accept Ghost's bad.
I think York is legitimately good at the defensive side of the position. He's not as good as we expect him to be, nor as good as he should be yet at the offensive side of the position. But I don't think those numbers are completely off. I think that
They're based on something.
I think that he is, especially probably with Travis Sanheim, he is a good defenseman in terms of chance and shot suppression. I think he is good at that. Now, is that enough to decide that he has to be a core piece of the organization for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years? That's debatable. But I don't think that, I think he's getting a little bit too much grief right now based on, number one, he's not scoring and people expect him to score. Number two, and you'll never be able to tell me this isn't true, there are a lot of fans who, even if they say they don't, they react to how John Tortorella treats a player. And if Torts is treating a guy like crap, then he must be bad because Torts is smart and that player is obviously not as good as any of us thought he was. I think that's probably part of it because Torts does have the power by benching guys, by scratching guys, to drive the narrative, positive or negative, about a guy. And I think that's probably hurting York right now in the estimation of a lot of fans who are positively predisposed towards John Tortorella.
That's interesting because I hadn't considered that. Where I thought you were going with that, tell me what I just was searching on Hockey Reference.
Cole Caulfield.
I thought maybe
Are people
that's
still obsessed with Cole Caulfield?
I don't know about the obsession.
Oh,
it's
boy.
just the decision. Like, you see what Cole Caulfield is now, 33 goals in 70 games. He's that dude. Like, he's the guy everyone thought, a small goal boy.
He's a darn good player.
He's really good, and I think it will always be a little bit that too. Like, there'll always be some of that. Maybe it's unfair, and maybe we need to get over it. We can say that about literally everything we talk about on the show all the time. But we'll always, I'll always remember being, where were we? Fieldhouse for that draft party. And from the U.S. National, it's like, yes, no, wrong. You said the wrong name. No. It was that. I think those things kind of combine, like all that stuff with the Cole Caulfield. But
And there's another factor too that I didn't mention, but I think it's not as significant. And it's really coming at it from two different angles, but they're ending up in the same spot. Number one, there are a lot of people, a lot of fans, particularly older fans, but younger fans too, who believe that the Flyers defense is too small. And they're watching Jamie Drysdale play better. And it's like, because that group had decided last year that like Drysdale stinks, he needs to go, he's too small, the defense is too small. Because at the time, people were happy about York. He had a real good second half of the year. It was like, well, York's the small defenseman. I'll deal with him, even though he's not my ideal because he's small. I'll deal with him because he's good. Get rid of Drysdale. He's trash because he's small and I'm mad at him. Now people are happy with Drysdale. So it becomes, well, if I think the defense is too small and I'm now thinking Drysdale might be a keeper.
And we're still not mad at Andre yet.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
We'll
sure.
get there. I mean, he blew that one play in last night's game.
He's
So
been
we'll
rough
get there
recently,
to be sure. But if Drysdale has to be kept, now it becomes, well, York has to go if we want the defense to get big because we can't have both of them. And now I like Drysdale more than York. Plus, and this is where I said the other side coming in it from the same direction into the same spot, the Flyers have openly said that they want the defense to be bigger and that eventually they're going to need to make a decision.
Brett Flair said it to you on the record. Yes. Yeah, I don't think like in the playoffs it's going to be Andre, York, and Drysdale on the same blue line.
So I feel like a lot of people are looking at it as
who's the odd man out?
Who's the odd man out? And York, because of the Torts stuff, because he hasn't been playing as well, because he's not scoring as much as people expected him to when he was drafted, maybe a little bit because of lingering resentment from the Caulfield thing. He is now replaced Drysdale as the small defenseman they should get rid of to make the defense less small.
And regardless
I think
of
that's
how
where a lot of it's coming from.
Regardless of how true it is, because you and I like talked about this, like, did they really drive down Frost and Farabee's value, or is it like, yeah, at $5 million for a dude who never scores, like you were only gonna get like a salary dump? Morgan Frost for a second, yeah, that seems about right, especially a month and a half before the deadline or whatever it was. Yes, but there is that perception that like we hold on to these guys, we take this time to evaluate them, and then we decide no, not part of it, and that drives their value down. I think people are like, let's do this with York now rather than give him another contract and then stretch this thing out. And then in 2 years, we go, yeah, defense is too small. We got to move him. And everyone knows we got to move him. I do think there's like part of that as well in terms of.
I don't necessarily buy that just because if York remains a quality top four defenseman, especially if they don't give him a long-term deal, if they give him a short-term bridge deal, which is what it seems like things are trending towards based on the report from Anthony DeMarco yesterday and just based on general common sense. I don't think he's going to lose value the way that Joel Farabee did because they gave him a 6-year deal with a $5 million cap hit and he was averaging like 25 points for a calendar year.
6 times 5, baby.
I don't think that's going to happen to York because he's still going to remain a smooth skating defenseman with a lot of tools who has first-round pedigree and can take 20 minutes a night and not get worn down. I don't think he's going to lose his value the way that Farabee clearly did.
If, let's say, and you and I are on the same page in terms of Risto, got to figure out a way to move that contract this offseason, but also now that he's hurt, probably complicates it a little.
Sure.
Let's say they're unable to. There's no market for him at $5.1 million for 2 years, so he comes back at least to start the season. If you put York and Risto together 20 minutes a night, does that maybe, like, do you think he maybe defers too much to Sanheim? Because we heard that about Sanheim last year. It was like not really grabbing the reins, and York was off to the hot start. And then, like, those two together, one of them kind of takes on, like, okay, there's going to be one puck mover and one stay-home guy, and you never have, like, maybe if you give him a different partner, have a big guy, physical on his right side, and let him do what he was supposed to do when he got here, that unlocks him a little bit. And before you answer, we're going to overtime. Head to allphly.com to keep watching. All right.
I don't know if I buy that, Bill.
Okay.
Because
I don't know anything.
Well, because I just talked about how you're really just looking at it from two different angles. I just talked about how right now Cam York's biggest strength is actually his defense, not his offense. There's two different ways you could play this in terms of his ideal partner. One is, all right, put him next to Risto and basically force him into doing the offensive stuff, and maybe you can pull that out of him. that maybe if you give him Risto, that he just has to do the offense because Risto ain't going to do it. So, yeah, maybe that makes him a better offensive defenseman because he has no other choice but to do the things with the puck. The other flip side of it is maybe you just get him a better Sanheim. You get him a guy, you let him lean into his strengths at being solid defensively and killing plays, and put him with a guy who is an offense driver, brings maybe a little bit more size to the table than York does, and balance him out that way. Tell him to lean into what he's already established that he's good at and just get better Sanheim.
All right, and I guess this is what leads us to the disconnect. Do you think right now what Cam York is enough for him to be part of this core going forward?
Yeah, I do. And now, I guess it depends on your definition of core. Like, if you're talking about like
a top
6
4
or 7, yeah, I think
he's a top 4 defenseman.
I think he's a top 4 defenseman right now. Now, maybe he's a second pair defenseman, but I think he's a top 4 defenseman.
I think he is on this team. I don't know if he is
on this team. He's a top pair defenseman.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think he's a top pair defenseman yet. But if I was building a team, yeah, I would have zero problem with Cam York being my 4. That would be totally fine by me. His underlying numbers are fantastic. He's strong defensively. He brings some puck moving ability, if not great puck moving ability. I think he is a perfectly solid second pair NHL defenseman right now. You seem to disagree.
I just want more. Maybe it's the draft pedigree. Maybe it's my just inherent bias about a little guy. You better be producing some more. I just need more two-way play. And it's not even like, again, yeah, the points numbers, that's what we're going to look at and go, Yeah. But it's like you said, man, when I hear John Tortorella talking about Rasmus Ristolainen's wheels and skating the puck out of trouble and like helping in the breakout, and it's like, yeah, he was good at that early and then like in his career because he was young and could move, and then suddenly like, I don't know what the hell is this guy, and now he's had this resurgence. Like, this is what York was always supposed to be, and maybe I have to change my expectations. Like, some guys have to change their game. We've talked about Scott Laughton how many times, like, had to become something different to become who he ultimately was, and now he's had, a 12-year NHL career or whatever. Maybe that's Cam York. It's just going to be a different game than we all expected. I just feel like I need a little more if I'm going to say, yeah, he's going to play 20 minutes a night on my playoff team. I just don't know if I see that.
Yeah, I'm just not ready to throw away a guy who has really good underlying performance in a top pair role for a bad team. To me, that strikes me as, yeah, he'd be great maybe in a second pair role. He just can't be in a second pair role on this team because they got nobody to do the top pair stuff other than him and Sanheim.
That's fair. There is so much of this that's like, how do we judge X without Y? Like, so much of it. How do we judge any of these defensemen without a goalie? How do we judge the power play without a point man and a net front and a coach who knows what the hell he's doing?
Godspeed, Danny Briere. That's his job.
Owen Tippett, real quick, because I said I wanted to get to this. We're going to do a couple minutes. Okay. So he's had a real tough second half. Got hurt the game before the Farabee-Frost trades. First 3 games out of 4 nations, though, it looks like, oh, man, this is like one of his best stretches of the season. We might finally be getting that Owen Tippett hot streak. 4 goals and an assist in 3 games. Since then, 13 games in March, 1 goal, 1 assist. What the hell is going on with Owen Tippett? He's like maybe the biggest disappointment this season outside of the goaltending.
Well, especially the end of the season. He's had runs. Now, maybe he has another run in him before the end of the season, but I would recommend, if you want more details on this, because we're not going to go into too much on this show since we're already in overtime. Yep. Read the article I wrote on allphly.com. It's primarily about Scott Laughton, but it's about more than that. The way I structured the article, it's about Laughton struggling to fit in Toronto away from the Flyers, and it's all about how the Flyers have struggled to maybe handle the loss of a leader like Laughton. And it's kind of like, hey, they're both going to have to figure it out if they want to make this work in their respective environments. But Owen Tippett was a guy who John Tortorella brought up yesterday, during morning skate. That was when he brought that up. That first he said there are guys on this team that are struggling in the post-trade world, that there's the human element, that it's been difficult for some guys. Then later in that conversation, he was like, I'll give you that Owen Tippett's one of the guys who's been struggling with it. He was really tight with Frost and Farabee, and he maybe feels like he's trying to put everything on his shoulders to make up for the fact that leadership is gone. Then about half an hour later, me and Kevin Kurz talked to Owen Tippett, and Owen Tippett basically on the record was like, yeah, I've been struggling with it. I'm trying to step up into a leadership role, but it's a lot, and I need to get a handle on it. He basically said, I think the quote that I included in the article was, I've been traded. It's a lot easier to get traded than it is to be the guys left behind, kind of. Tippett's been struggling with it. And maybe that is what is going on here, that it is hitting him hard from a personal standpoint to lose his buddies who were there for him, that helped him, acclimate to the Flyers. And then knowing that he has a long-term contract, knowing that he's part of this, he's feeling like the weight of the world's on his shoulders, that he has to make up for the fact they traded away Scott Lawton, the fact that they've lost a third of their top 9. And that pressure, he's overthinking. He's trying too hard to do everything, and as a result, he's doing nothing. John Tortorella even said that with some of these guys that have been struggling with it, he's not sure if it's going to be resolved in the final 10 games. So he's not giving Owen Tippett a pass, but it does seem like the two of them have talked about it, and maybe Tortorella has a little bit more empathy for Tippett than he may have 2 weeks ago in the midst of the slump.
All right.
Read the article on allphly.com. It goes into a lot more detail about it.
Read it. All right, let's hit these super chats real quick. I believe we have a decent... Okay, only 3. That's great. Keeping Charlie here. He hasn't been home yet. Came right from the airport to the studio. From our pal Gary B. Says, hey, Bill and Charlie. Charlie, it was nice chatting up with you.
I ran into Gary B. at the airport.
That's awesome. At the Philly airport. Go Flyers. Keep tanking. I better see a birthday game tomorrow. There is no reason to think that it's going to go any better than it's been going, Gary. Thank you for always being a part of the super chats, as well as our pal JH. Bunch of sickos we are. You really are. You make my life so much easier by just tuning in. My God, I wanted to give up in the second period last night. It was like, no, this is your career now. You can't just you can't just quit. But the fans make it incredibly easy. We appreciate each and every one of you who tune in. We had like over 400 live during post game last night.
That's cool.
I was like, why would 400 people have even watched the game? But thank you very much. And finally, from him, I like it.
Sure.
If they keep this up next year, we'll be getting...
Is this the band or is this the villain from Powerpuff Girls?
I'm going to go with the band.
Okay.
I had their demo from Hot Topic back in the day. If they keep this up next year, we'll be getting Gavin McKenna. I'm all for it. McKenna Misa Mishkov. Wouldn't that be nice? Comcast, go pay off. Bettman.
Can we just like...
No. We will never stop talking.
No, it's
about a conspiracy.
No, I'm not even a conspiracy.
Okay.
I'm just saying that, like, can we... For the people who want the team to tank, can you enjoy that they're going to have a top 5 pick this year before turning it to, be bad next year and get Gavin McKenna? Like, let's just live in the now. Let's not be like, no, got to tank next year too. Like, come on. They're going to get a top 5 pick. You're getting what you want. Enjoy that before turning to next June.
No. We always... More. That's the American way, Charlie. Excess. Have 3. What is the? It's in.
And then if they get Gavin McKenna, it's going to be, there's this really good guy in 2028. Got to tank for him too.
And then we'll hear that actually McKenna's not that good. This draft is weak, and they need to tank again.
Right.
McKenna's got like 600 points this year.
You're
going
to get a top 5 pick. Enjoy it. Just enjoy it.
And I've enjoyed this conversation, but that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Make sure you're following us right here on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow with pre- and post-game coverage for yet another rousing contest of National Hockey League action. I don't even remember who they're playing, quite honestly. What do we have? I don't know. It's the Habs, right? Yeah, it's so we get to see Cole Caulfield up close. Outstanding. All right, that's it. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast as well. Wherever you get those, just search PHLY Flyers. I'm Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, roll on, tank.
We all silly like the mayor.